I've had a huge spike in the amount of subscribers lately, and it's really helping me out, so thank you.
Brussels sprouts and cauliflower, onion, fennel and cucumber, plum, pear and papaya, aubergine and soya, lime, lentils and quinoa, oatmeal bread and oatmeal flour, watercress and okra, tofu and sweet pepper.
And the strange thing is, I haven't actually made a video about what veganism actually is, despite having run this channel for about 6 years. Isn't that strange? And this isn't only for people who aren't vegans and wonder what veganism is. This is also to people in the vegan community who's also a little confused about what veganism is about. Well, first I'm gonna have to explain the vegetarian diet. So a vegetarian is known as someone who don't consume meat, but consume eggs, dairy and honey, and also use other animal byproducts. But where does vegetarianism come from? Well, we don't know. The original definition, well, I don't know if this is true, but supposedly that vegetarian basically meant that you only ate plants. The first time it was mentioned in Europe was by the Greek philosopher Pythagoras, where he actually spoke about vegetarian diets. Yes, that's how you pronounce it. Well, is a vegan someone who just don't consume any animal products? Well, that is how many people think it is. So you got expressions like health vegans or environmental vegans, and I got to say, yeah, a lot of people follow completely plant-based diets to improve their health, performance and such, and some people turn to veganism just because, well, it's helping the environment out. However, these two groups of people are only a study away from abandoning it, honestly. So what is really veganism? That has confused people for a very long time. Well, veganism has been explained by the definition that veganism is a philosophy that seeks to exclude as far as possible and practicable all forms of cruelty, death and exploitation of animals. But the problem with this definition is that it is also misunderstood. The reason is that most people confuse the word practicable with practical, which bears a very different meaning. Because anyone can say, well, it's not practical for me to give up animal products, so I can eat animal products and call me vegan then. It's not the way that it works, and thus this definition is pretty bad, honestly. Therefore, I feel it's better to just explain you what the philosophy is all about. Well, it's basically a philosophy that seeks to extend universal human rights to animals when it makes sense. So, humans has a lot of rights that wouldn't make sense to give to animals. But humans have a right to life because we're sentient beings who can experience suffering, well-being and has a will to live. These aren't exclusively human abilities. And this is a point to bring forward where it differs from the humanist society, because they've basically taken with them the thing that I dislike the most with the Abrahamic religions, the human exceptionalism. So there are people who don't believe in God, but they still believe that humans are exceptional universally, which I would say, I don't believe humans are that special. We have abilities beyond what all other species have in some areas, but I won't say that humans are ourselves extraordinary above everything else. This is not to say that all vegans equate humans and animals and say we're worth the same. No, I believe that in many ways humans are worth far more. Specifically in intrinsic value, I'd save a human before a cow, I'd save a human before a dog, a human before a chicken. I'm a little bit undecided if I would save a whale before a human, but that is a different topic for another day. However, most of people who believe that all animals are equal are of course going to go to veganism. Thus, there is a majority of vegans who actually believe that we're equal. Well, where does veganism come from? Well, the term surfaced in 1944 when the vegan society was established. But there have been people living within the philosophy way longer than that. There is an example. You got, for example, Leonardo da Vinci, if we are to believe his writings. Not only did he avoid eggs and dairy, amongst meat of course, but he also wrote up the cruelty and exploitation of bees in the honey industry. Like, this was in the 1400 and the 1500, before B12 was actually created, which is interesting. So basically the difference between a vegetarian and a vegan is basically that a vegan believes in a philosophy. You can be vegetarian and don't believe in a philosophy. So even though if you're a fully vegetarian and you don't consume any animal products, well, you might use animal products elsewhere. You might wear wool, you might use animal-tested cosmetics. But a vegan wants to avoid anything that is animal-tested, contains animal products, or promotes any type of animal exploitation. But there's a little caveat there, and it comes to practicable. I said that people using the word practical makes it confusing. No, when it comes to practicable is it okay to avoid harm if it's not intentional, if it's not a rights violation, or whatever? Are we going to force people to just pick out insects from the farms so that we don't spray them so they die? Maybe that's not practicably possible. Now, should we let humans die off by a deadly virus, so we shouldn't use like animal tested or like egg white containing vaccines? Probably not practicably possible. And another thing that gets confusing within the vegan community is that many people believe that the definition should also involve humans, because humans are also animals. And I agree. It is a truth of the matter. It is a fact that humans are animals. But it's still very weird in the sense of what we're fighting for. We are an animal rights movement. We want to give animal rights that humans already have. How do you translate this to human rights? And secondly, what about animal welfare organization? Do they also have to fight for human welfare because humans are also animals? What about organizations like the animal police? Should they also help people because people are also animals? No, this is just how language works. We know there's a truth of the matter, but when people use animals in a description, people don't necessarily mean humans. And a huge thing is veganism a cult? Many people ask if veganism is a cult. Some people even claim it's a religious view. Now, veganism is a philosophy and it's not a cult. But that is not to say that there aren't vegan cults. For example, you have the founder of the Loving Hut restaurants, Shanghai. She is a leader of a cult. But that cult believes in other things. But is the cult vegan? Yes, the cult follows the principle of veganism, but it also follows quite a bit of other things as well. Are there vegan religions? Depends on how you define religions. I know that there are some other spiritual views that veganism is central of, and if you view Jainism as veganism, many of them justify consuming dairy, so I don't know, maybe. Now, is veganism political? Because there are vegan parties out there. Yes and no. So, veganism is not a political statement necessarily. Or is it though? So, you can be vegan and not politically active. You can fight for veganism outside of politics. But our goal should basically be to get into law that animals also deserve a right to safety, right to life, and a right not to be tortured, just like humans already has. Like, for example, it is already illegal to rape an animal. It's already illegal to, well, depends on how you view it, torture an animal, unless it's for science. You can technically rape an animal if it's for animal production, but that is a topic for another day again. But for some reason, it's okay to kill an animal for food. Well, isn't it worse to kill than to rape? What if I get enjoyment from torturing animals because I like how it sounds? Like, yeah, that is basically the fundamental part. Animals don't have a right to life, but they should. They really should. This said, veganism will not bring you away from your political party. Veganism will not bring you away from your religion. Veganism will not bring you away from human rights movements you're interested in. It is basically just a statement that we shouldn't be killing animals. It's a non-action, so although I'm not a feminist activist, I don't actively go out and discriminate women, for example. It's solidly a philosophy based on that they should also have rights. Like vegans are anyone. You have right-leaning, left-leaning, centrists, you got anarchists, you got communists. There are people from different religions. There are Muslims or Christians, Muslim. There are atheists, agnostics, and there is even vegan Nazis out there. You know, not that I'm for Nazism, but there are vegan Nazis out there. So as you see, vegans aren't only hippies. Like there are rich vegans, there are poor vegans. There's people from any country basically. Well, I don't know if anyone residing in the Vatican are vegan. Who knows? So even if you're an outdoors person, or if you like doing makeup, if you like doing gymnastics, if you're a top athlete, you can still be vegan. And there are vegans in all of these. Like almost anything you do as a hobby doesn't really prevent you from being vegan, unless you like fishing and hunting and stuff. That that will basically break with veganism. Yeah. So I hope that this has clarified a few things. Well, veganism isn't a diet, it's a philosophy. And if anyone is saying that they're vegan, then you might understand what that is, and maybe you'll just consider adopting the philosophy.